April 28, 2026. This is the S&P 500 E futures mini on the 2000 chick chart using NinjaTrader 8. This is what the chart looked like today. It's another really slow day. There were some more almost setups, but I, for myself, couldn't pull the trigger for one reason or another. Mainly there's probably the signal bar or things just didn't quite set up the way I liked. It might have been a little bit too conservative, but I did mark one trade. Unfortunately, I didn't take it though. One setup that I thought might have been a viable trade, but it's kind of over here. And you can see like this volume is really low and volatility is kind of low because the total movement was, I mean, effectively during regular trading hours, about 71.80 down to about 71.46. So it's about 35 points, but it doesn't really move the full 35. It kind of chops around in a little bit tighter range. So I'm going to get into the setups right now. And there was no economic data to really move the markets any which way today. It was actually pretty quiet from, I think, the Middle East. Maybe the only thing that came out was that I think one of the countries decided to leave OPEC. And so that might help or hurt gas prices. We're not sure, but it didn't really affect the general market. So it's just really quiet. I anticipate tomorrow might be a little bit more volatile because the FOMC rate decision is coming out. And although I think most analysts are thinking there's going to be no change in the rate decision, usually it's a small, slow crawl up until about 11 o'clock Pacific Standard. Then once the news comes out, there's this crazy whipsaw jerky price action where people are positioning or anticipating one thing or another. And then when Fed Chair Powell comes out and gives his color commentary at 11:30 Pacific Standard, usually during his speech, prices usually move up or down based upon what he says, and it just kind of gets a little bit, I don't know, unpredictable. So tomorrow could be kind of a wild day, to be honest. I'm not really sure. Okay, so in the pre-market, prices are moving down. Looks like it was a break. So I had found this channel. It broke, tested low. I at one time tried to make this breakout here fit, but when I did, it looked like, there's just too much space. So it didn't really matter though, because this is after the fact, because I start trading right about here, or looking at the charts right about here, but this is more just looking back in time, thinking what I would have thought and how I would have drawn price action that looked like this in the regular trading. It's just extra practice, but it's not really important. So it pushes down to the localized low, actually low of day, pushes up, breaks. It gives you a second entry long here. In all honesty, if I saw this in real time, I'm pretty sure I still wouldn't take it because it broke below the EMA, and what I'd really want is a higher low, but it never shows up. Prices right before the open creates a first entry long pullback, creates a second entry long, but I saw it as a count reset. So I said this is a localized high, even though technically you have a really tiny move here. I saw it as one big leg down, pullback, second leg. And it was like a second entry long. It's an almost trade, not really a full trade, because even though it triple bounces here, and if you wanted to, you could actually extend it here and maybe say it's a little bit tougher to argue, but you could say maybe there's a triple test, but I see it as more like a double test because this is just too close. There is one candle in between, but it's a little aggressive in my opinion to call it triple test. And this inside bar kind of doesn't do it for me. I want to see a higher low now. Get a higher low here, but also the higher low is far from the EMA. It's already testing a localized high. I want to see a higher low, kind of touch the EMA and then close maybe where my cursor is. So it moves up this green up channel, has a small breakout here, creates a first entry long pullback. Technically you have a second entry long, but I actually thought it looks like a visual first entry. So it's one leg down, one leg up, pullback, one leg down, one leg up. Then it fails right here. So it looks like a failed visual first entry long, and it does give you a technical second entry short. So localized low, first entry short, second entry short. What made me a little unsure was in real time, the EMA it's not really being respected right now because there's prices moving above and below and then now cut below. So yes, there are maybe two key entry points on this candle here, but I have no idea that it's really going to flush down because it could easily find or react to maybe some kind of support right here. So this is just something I saw in real time. I didn't take it because I couldn't really justify or trust it. If the EMA wasn't adding a little bit of complexity here, a little bit of ambiguity, maybe there might have been a trade for me. Pushes down, you get a lower high here, but this is kind of far from everything, just kind of sitting out in the middle of nowhere. Pushes, breaks, starts moving sideways. You have a second entry short here, but I didn't like the signal bar. Continues moving, and it pushes up, so it's localized low. First entry short, pull back. You technically have a second entry short here, and then you get a lower high here. This lower high kind of ran into the same issue that this one did. Both of them terminated nicely right at the lows, and for all intents, these are really great signal bars, but the setup is a little iffy just because the EMA is throwing me for a loop. It was since been deleted, but I had an early thought that maybe there's some kind of range here, but this range for me is hard to trust. The low side kind of touches, but never has a third touch confirmation. High side is really only defined by this one peak right here. So to argue that it's in a range, maybe moving down, well, it never really touched the top either. So although it's a really nice signal bar, I couldn't come to trust there's any kind of setup there. It would have worked though, but that's neither here nor there. Can't really say something works after the fact when you never really acted on it. But at least for me, I kind of just noted, watched it, moved on. So it bounces, pushes, and starts moving sideways. Technically, you can count for second entries in here, but this is just kind of choppy sideways. I'm not the biggest fan. There's a failed breakout here, but it's early in this range development. I'm not even sure at this time if this is actually a valid range. It looks like it's also just kind of moving down. It moves sideways. Technically, I have a new low here. First entry short, second entry short. It's terrible signal bar, terrible follow through. I'm looking for a lower high. You don't get it till about here. So there's no setup here for me. It starts moving down. At this time, right about here, I was trying to fit all kinds of trend lines like this. Then I also had something, I kind of have one here, but I also cut it a little bit sharper. But I wasn't a big fan of this overshoot and then just kind of cutting through just to give this one to touch. Because then what effectively I'm doing is I'm saying this is important and this is important, but I neglected this. And then this line here, it really doesn't really seem to be important after already violated, price action already violated the resistance by moving up and then coming back down. So since been deleted. And then I have this as a trend line coming down. It's very high. So I was wondering if price is really going to come back up to here. By the time this forms here, I arbitrarily put the low side here thinking this is a really big channel, but I don't really trust it as a key entry point just yet because there's only really one touch confirmation and maybe two touch confirmation. But there's still arguably a lot of white space up here and up, down here and up here. So it kind of moves over and it does give you this triple test because it had one attempt, second attempt, third attempt, bounces off this, which is just this. This can't be considered a resistance that's reliable yet because it's just bounced off by itself. So it technically looked like it's a first entry short, but it count resets. So it looks like it's a first entry short, pullback, second entry short. Second entry short, you could argue it's also maybe a lower high if you did do this first entry short, second entry short, then maybe a lower high. But this lower high is actually the same double top. So at this point, I'm unsure if the triple test is pretty much all I have going for it is strong enough to argue because this is argue for a trade to go short because this lower high technically isn't lower. It's about the same level. So you'd only be trading based off of the triple test. So it pushes down. Then it finally comes up. This is also another almost trade. So it looks like a visual from down here, localized low, first entry short, pullback, potential second entry short, multiple tests. So there's clearly some kind of resistance here, but these are kind of big candles side by side. I'm a little reluctant to try to take these trades because also these lows are making higher movements every time. So it almost looks like it's getting a little crushed. Words not drawn well, but it's kind of visually looks like that. So I was concerned there might be a bounce right here. Go ahead and delete that. Let's scroll forward. It does reject and push back down, hits a localized low, and makes it new low of day. So it's a low here, first entry short, pull back, second entry short. Second entry short technically has failed here, but I can't do anything with this because this line, this red line support trend line here, isn't reliable yet. It'd be pretty much a third touch, but isn't really a third touch with this violation here. And the only thing you'd really have is a nice signal bar. You have no idea if the next candle, or I didn't, it's going to look like this. And by the time this candle shows up and you have a confirmed failed second entry short, it's too late to try to take a trade, in my opinion, because there's some kind of potential resistance here that I thought. Is it going to reject here and come back down? I don't know yet because there's not enough price action. Ends up pushing upwards. When it touches here, that's where I drew this line and trusted it more. And I kind of put the high side, but I never colored it in. Let me delete this. You technically have a localized high first entry long, second entry long. It is bouncing off this potential support, but it's a bad signal bar. I was actually looking for a higher low, but it never shows up. Pushes the high side. Here, it coincidentally confirms this. So in real time, I'm thinking, okay, I could, by the time by here, I could treat this as a potential resistance. So localized high, first entry long, technically have a second entry long here, but it actually looks like it's one leg down, pushes up, and the second leg down. So you could call this maybe the visual second entry long. The visual second entry long is under the EMA. It looks a little bit congested. Then pushes up. I was thinking maybe it's moving up this green up channel. It's localized low. First entry short, technically a second entry short, but this is an inside bar. I'm not a big fan of that. Then it pushes back down this bigger orangey down channel. It's kind of far from the EMA. These candles are kind of big. I'm not sure what my bias is here, so I just kind of left it alone. So it creates a localized low, first entry short pullback, second entry short, but the second entry short, I'm not a fan when the signal bar has too many wicks on both sides and the body is small in the middle, because then it tells me there's a little bit of indecision going on here after this kind of choppy mess here. So it's not clearly trending up, clearly trending down. It's not forming a clear channel or range. So then this setup, I don't think is really any kind of setup here. So it pushes down. You do have a triple test here, but other than that, you really don't have anything going for it. It starts reversing back up this really tight, kind of messy, just side by side, ugly kind of price action right here. I mean, it's not ugly, it is trending, but it's just hard to look for a trade here because from up here to down here is 10 points, but it took about 20 minutes. And it's just kind of candles are just moving, pretty much creating a bunch of little inside bars to the previous. I mean, there are ones that peak above and below, but it's just really, really slow, choppy. It hits sideways price action, so it kind of looks like it's ranging. Break, test the high, then it flushes back down. Break, test the low. You have a higher low here. Technically, you have a new high, first entry long pullback, second entry long, and then you have a higher low, maybe a multiple test argument here. But other than marking it, I don't really think there was much to it that I particularly like. It does look like it's one leg up, pullback, second leg, creates a localized high. You have a first entry long pullback, and I actually thought this might have been a possible trade because up until then, when you see this, okay, I think I'm in a potential range or at least some kind of valid support here because this support, not necessarily line, but this support zone has been respected. 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch, 4 touch with small breakout, 5 touch. So this is a multiple test. Looks like it's one leg down, pullback, second leg. Pretty clean signal bar. I thought there was a possible test, possible trade here. You'd have to sit through this noise, and then this risk is kind of within our wheelhouse. It's like 2.75 ticks. So if you put the risk down here or your stop loss down here or even down here, I thought this is good enough for a quick 6-tick scalp. But unfortunately, I wasn't, excuse me, I wasn't really ready to take this trade. Then it pushes up, pushes down. So it's localized low, first entry short, second entry short, doji, inside bar. I'm not a big fan of that. Reverses up. So you could say it's a first entry short, second entry short, second entry short. It doesn't fail on this signal bar until it gets to here. And by the time that happens, when I see this inside bar, I'm not thinking of going long anymore. But then it finally reverses and pushes up. break of the screen up channel, test the high, and it kind of gets choppy. Then it creates another localized high, first entry long. Technically, I have a second entry long here, but I don't like that this is kind of a doji hammer bar here. It's a little far from the EMA. I did have this as a potential support, and it turned into a channel, but just didn't really like the setup here. Then it pushes up, creates a breakout here, comes back down, tests and creates another breakout, and it creates this tiny little range here. So again, I wanted this to play out a little bit because I wasn't sure in real time which way it's looking. I was thinking things might be reversing because this could have been a spike and a channel upwards, or at least a shallow channel. What threw me for a loop was the bottom kind of fits pretty well. The top, I'm dealing with this potential breakout, which maybe it's actually higher like this, so there is no breakout. But then I didn't like that the two swings up here never got confirmed by anything. But putting it down here, you get a breakout here. So I wasn't really sure which way to draw it. So I just decided, don't even try risking a trade right now. Pushes down. It kind of touches a third time, but this is transparent for a reason. It's not fitting nicely because it breaks through here. If I try to make the second swing touch nicely here, then I get nothing here. This is way up here. You have an overshoot here. If I try to eliminate the overshoot and drag it up to here, now this feels kind of like a big channel that's not very it's kind of a worthless channel because I have too much empty space here, too much empty space here. All this telling me is something I already know, is that there's a bullish bias. But also time of day when I see this and I'm trying to find out which way it's going, I take into account like how much time is there and how active prices were moving today. And it wasn't a very active day. So to try to, I think, look for a viable trade on a day like this, I just decided, it's just going to be a no trade day. I kind of entered the day knowing that from yesterday that today is going to be a very slow day. So I didn't really try to hunt for anything or try to, I don't know, stare at it sideways, convince myself there's a setup when I know that's gotten me in trouble before. So I decided, okay, well, right about here, it's probably going to be a no trade day, and then just kind of didn't really stare at the chart for the last hour as intently because just nothing was being offered to me. Then it creates a localized high. It's a first entry long pullback. Technically, if a second entry long, it looks like it is 2 legs down, but this is too late in the day for me to want to try to take anything. And I actually wanted a higher low, which does show up right here and maybe right here. But then this is definitely too late in the day to try to take a trade. So ends up being a no trade day. Probably a few of, there's only really one setup I thought might have been viable. Other than that, there was a lot of almost setups. If other people saw it slightly different or were more aggressive than me, maybe some of these trades I could have taken. But just for my own experience, I need to see these a lot more to get a better feel of what I'm looking at. And I don't think I'm quite there yet to take those trades. So hopefully that was helpful.